is a nightmare. Man, that's the way it seems. Life is a nightmare.
Welcome to Today in Horrible History, your daily moment of historical misfortune. For February 10th, 2022, we head back to February 10th, 1355 on the Julian calendar. On that date, long-standing tensions between students at the University of Oxford and the town of Oxford boiled over into a 3-day orgy of violence which killed nearly 100 people. First off, let's note that the actual Saint Scholastica was from what is now Italy and from 1,000 years earlier. She has nothing to do with events. This painting, by the way, is also from over 1,000 years after she lived. She wouldn't have been dressed that way. Just about every day is a particular saint's day on the church calendar, and that's how people would recall events at the time. Moving along, the University of Oxford is the second oldest functioning university on the planet and the oldest in the English-speaking world, founded in the 11th century. It grew rapidly in the 13th century following a domestic ban of English students attending the University of Paris. University and town life, then as now in a college town, were somewhat separate, with the university a power unto itself. It's safe to say that most students were from a higher social class than most residents, although in some cases wealthier merchants might have been doing as well financially, if not in social rank. Students in some cases boarded in local boarding houses and bought food and drink locally, but otherwise there was a distinction between groups. 150 years prior to the riot, the Cambridge University was founded by Oxford students who broke away from Oxford following the lynching of 2 students by Oxford residents. In the 50 years prior to the riot, 12 students had murdered townsfolk. In 1314, a riot between the 2 general groups of students, who at the time were divided into those from northern Britain and those from southern Britain, resulted in 39 murders. Additionally, the plague, the Black Death, swept through Oxford in 1349, killing a quarter of the students and townspeople alike, and driving the fortunes of both town and university down some. So you're beginning to get a picture of what things were like at the time and place. On February 10th, 1355, 2 students were drinking at the Swindlestock Tavern. The Swindlestock was already a century old. It would eventually stand on the spot for a total of 650 years, finally replaced with a more modern building in 1709. The students complained about the quality of the wine and asked for better drink. Words were exchanged with the tavern owner, and eventually a cup of wine was thrown in his face. This initiated a bar fight, which spilled into the street. Once in the street, students and townspeople took sides, and a full-scale murderous riot ensued. The fighting continued for 3 days, with Oxford residents sending out to surrounding towns for an estimated 2,000 reinforcements, some of whom were armed with bows. The outnumbered students got the worst of it, with most of the university residence halls invaded and any off-campus students attacked at their boarding houses. Many students were killed or maimed. Some were reportedly scalped. Student bodies were dumped on dung heaps in the river and in one case stuffed into a privy. In other words, stuffed down an outhouse toilet. Estimates run 30 townspeople and 63 students were killed. Much of the town had been burned to the ground, and as people just flat out got tired of 3 days of killing, King Edward II's authorities ordered a cessation of violence. The king sent what was called an oyer and terminer, or oyer et terminer, a fact-finding committee to determine who was at fault and what should be done. The townspeople of Oxford were largely found to be guilty of most transgressions, and the university was given the power to lord it over the townspeople for centuries, although sporadic smaller violent outbreaks also continued for centuries. The head of the university was given control over most important town functions. These included taxation and any legal matter involving a single student or instructor, even if they were only on one side of the complaint and a townsperson was on the other. Townspeople were also banned from most church participation while the fact-finding proceeded, something which most people I know would regard a benefit, but which the average 14th century person would consider gambling with eternal damnation. As if this weren't enough, the mayor and other town officials, a minimum of 60 townsfolk, were required annually to attend a special Mass of Atonement on St. Scholastica's Day, and to pay a penny to the university for each student killed. This was rather more money at the time than now. And this practice was continued until 1825. 1825. In an effort to further make nice, in 1955, some 600 years later, the university granted a city official an honorary diploma, and a university official was made an honorary freeman of the city. It should be noted that Oxford is considered one of the most prestigious universities in the English-speaking world, and dozens of world leaders, including 28 UK prime ministers and at least one US president, were educated there. Things are beginning to make a lot more sense. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more Today in Horrible History. Remember that after a brief visit, the rest of your day can only seem better in comparison.
Life is a nightmare. Man, that's the way it seems. Life is a nightmare.